welcome back to another episode. Today we have Julie DeLucca Collins with us. So welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course, grateful to have you on. So if you can, start us off with a little bit more about you and what you do.
Sure, absolutely. I am a life and business strategy coach. I am certified as a tiny habits coach and cognitive behavioral techniques, but I have been a successful executive in the business world for over 20 years. I grew many companies to multi-million dollars. And not only have I done that for others, but now I'm helping individual women who are launching their business and are not sure how to be able to grow a brand, build a strategy, and create the simple habits that allow them to be successful entrepreneurs and business owners. So I help them do that.
Awesome. Okay. So with this podcast, I like to kind of start from the beginning, not the exact beginning, but early on.
Okay.
And so the first question I ask is so before I think you said it was your own business or you were an executive, your own business. Okay.
Both. I for my own business and as an executive to the organizations that I worked for.
Okay. So it was both. So before all that, let's just say maybe like high school or something, what did you see yourself doing any of that, or was the path you saw way, way different?
I actually just spoke about this on my own podcast. I have a podcast too called Casa, DeConfidence. And I was telling someone that when I was in high school, I belonged to future homemakers of America, but I never envisioned myself being a homemaker. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I knew that I wanted to be successful. I knew that I wanted more for my life. I wanted freedom. I grew up in a family in which you were either a teacher, but also were expected to be a leader. So in every position that I've had, I've continued to look to grow and lead. I started as a teacher. I working with kindergarten students, and then I moved to middle school. And that was fun, but I wanted more. And also, for as much as I do feel like I'm a natural teacher, and I think that this is what helps me in my coaching, that I really help to mentor and teach people what I know. The other thing for me that was hard is I hated the teaching hours. I always needed a nap after school because it was way too early. But I also wanted to create a larger impact. And what happened, I was recruited by a national educational company in my early 20s to come and work for them. I had done some grant writing. My dad worked for the Agency of International Development. So he used to do a lot of grant writing as a contractor. And I learned grant writing for them. I was hired to come on board because I also had retail experience. I had worked at Federated Department Stores, Macy's. So I had some of that. I had the teaching background. And as an organization, although their main purpose was to provide tutoring to families, they also needed someone that had that business retail experience. So it gave me the opportunity to meld all of my skills together. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I love this because I'm still in education, but I'm also in a place where I have the opportunity to grow. And that's exactly what happened. I grew with that organization. I was so lucky that one of the approaches they take in all of their employees is to grow them and really mentor them and coach them. I worked for the VP of business development, and he taught me everything about creating a business, developing a business. And then as I grew to an executive within the brand, as an executive, you also get training in marketing, IT, branding. So I really was very fortunate to be on there, and I was there for 10 years and it was great for me. And then I moved to another organization, very similarly doing the same thing. And as the VP within that organization, and later on as the chief innovation officer, I was in charge of growing the organization, expanding to new markets, and creating new programming for our clients, which were school districts.
Got it. Okay. And then from there, it led into your own business.
So I started working as again, as a VP of development. But one of the things that I really loved is that I didn't see a lot of women in the C-suite or in the executive level. And I started to look around and thought, well, what's going on? Like, why how come it's not as many of us out here? And what I started to find is that women really struggle with confidence. And not to say that I don't, but what I started to find is that I did have a great support system. My dad always told me I can go and accomplish anything that I set out to. He was always a mentor, encouraged me. I then started mentoring at the community college in the area and volunteering and helping others. And that's when I realized that I really wanted to, at one point, do this full time. And I knew that I wanted to, and I didn't know how or when or why it would happen, but I wanted to run my own organization. I didn't know if I wanted to stay within the education industry. But what I did is I started just mentoring clients. People would always come to me. It's like, oh, I have an idea for a business. What do you think about how do I market or how do I? And I started to just work with that. And then I got certified as a coach. I went first for my holistic coaching certification, mainly to help myself because I think that I am my best client. Um, and I wanted to really be able to, better myself and get myself unstuck out of the areas that, we all need to grow through, right? And then I went through cognitive behavioral techniques coaching. Again, that was something that really has helped me. I think that sometimes in the business world or even in our interactions with our family, friends, or colleagues, we tend to create a lot of difficulty for ourselves because of the stories we tell ourselves. And using cognitive behavioral techniques is one of the things. I'm not perfect at it. I'm a work in progress, but has helped me throughout. And that helped me really continue to grow in the business world. And lastly, as I continue to grow, I started to say, well, maybe within the next 5 years, and this is, I would say, in 2020, I was doing a lot of speaking engagements. I was continuing to work with this organization. And then the pandemic hit. When the pandemic hit, I was laid off. The organization hit a really rough patch. And although it was a difficult time for me because I'd been with them for 12 years and I had a lot of emotional and personal ties to the founder of the company who, sadly had passed away, but there was still a lot of feelings on that. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I knew that I was going to go out on my own. I know that I didn't want to work for somebody else. And I knew that I had what it takes to be able to create a brand and then help others. I struggled for the first 6 months trying to figure out, like, well, do I want to coach people in life coaching or do I want to help them with mindfulness? Because I again, had become a yoga teacher, a mindfulness teacher, and I started a podcast, and that was my husband's idea, which I love because I had always talked about doing it, but I had never done it. And as that was happening, all of a sudden, people kept coming to me and said, I'm starting a business. I want to do this. What do you think? And then all of a sudden, it's like a light bulb went off. It's like, why am I not a business coach? I know how to do this. And then it clicked. And that's when I started to get clients and build my brand. Subsequently, wrote a book on confidence, specifically for women, telling them the stories of the women who have mentored me so that they can in turn have that support system and see that, we don't always have it together. We don't always feel confident or perfect. But if we just keep consistent and use simple habits that really can help us move ahead, we can go and achieve our dreams. So that's a nutshell my story. And now I work with individual women. I do group coaching. I have some courses. Of course, my past of having connections and in relationships in the business world and in the education world, I still have my pulse in those. I have been hired. I still do mentoring in one of the colleges in leadership. Another college has hired me to continue to do some work with students and habits, goal setting. So I do a lot of that as well. So in addition to working as a coach for individuals, I'm contracted as a consultant and speaker for large companies and organizations. And that's about me in a nutshell. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So all right. There's like 10 questions in my head.
Okay, unpack it.
Put them in a order that makes sense. So okay. So the first one I think that popped in my head is, and I don't know if it's why, but let's see how it comes out. So it's, why do you think women struggle more with confidence? And Or I'll let you answer that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think one of the biggest things is, and I can speak from experience and seeing some of my clients and some friends that struggle with confidence. I think that we have always, as little girls, and times are changing, the roles are changing in the world, but many of us grew up being told, oh, you need to look pretty, or you need to, your value was really tied to how you look, how you behaved. And you weren't necessarily given the space to push boundaries, right? A nice girl doesn't speak up, right? So there's a lot of these constraints or rules that were predetermined. And I think that we're afraid of breaking them. The other thing too is, as women, as we grow, we haven't seen people in these roles. I was lucky enough. I had a grandmother that had her own school, was very outspoken. She was born at the turn of the 20th century, but she was highly educated. She traveled the world alone. You didn't see that in 1930s, but I did. And I had that role model. And I think that when women don't see what they want to be or what they feel they can't be, it's difficult to step into those shoes. So this is why I want to, create the space and give room to the stories of seeing others that are accomplishing these things, so that others can move past the insecurity. And although, again, you never feel like 100% confident. Sometimes you're like, okay, I think I can do it. I'm going to try. And then the more that you do something, the more that you can gain confidence. So the goal is to at least get someone to step out and try it.
100%. Okay. And that makes complete sense. And then I think after that, and obviously your book talks about this, but you had said cognitive behavioral tactics. I think, and unless I missed it, I could have. Did you mention what some of those were?
Yeah, so cognitive behavioral techniques is based on the premise that the circumstances are neither good or bad, right? It is just how we tend to think and what we think of these circumstances, and our thoughts is what generates how we feel. And therefore, when we are feeling a certain way, that tends to then create an action, and the action that we take then creates a result. So for instance, for me, I'm going to give this example, and it's the easiest example. And my husband is sitting there, but he's used to me saying this, right? So for instance, if I trip over his shoes and my thought is, oh my God, he's so sloppy, right? That's my thought. Then my feeling is going to be like annoyance over the shoes being there. So then my action, let's say when I interact with him, I'm going to be a little snappy to him. And then that's my action. And then my result is that he's going to be, offended, upset, or whatever. And then I can't control his actions. I can only control mine. But my result is that, we're going to have maybe friction between us, right? And that creates a lot of difficulty. Then I'm going to say, well, like, oh, he's mad at me, I'm mad at him. And then I'm creating that result of continuing that annoyance and continuing to grow. Now, if I, let's say, trip over the shoes, and my result that I want is to be close to my husband, that I want to be a good wife, loving, caring, but I'm tripping over his shoes. My thought could be, oh my God, he must have been really tired, right? That he left his shoes there. Or, oh, okay, well, that he didn't make it up the stairs or whatever. But we can't go from feeling one thing or thinking one thought that doesn't serve us to all of a sudden thinking 100%, or 180-degree differently. What happens is like we have to start kind of moving up the dial rather than turning on and off a switch. And cognitive behavioral techniques helps you, well, what's a more believable thought? Oh my God, he's messy, to like, oh, okay, well, he's working on it. He's trying. I gave him the thought. And then, if I trip over the shoes and my thought is like, okay, well, he must have been tired, then my feeling is not going to be like, oh, annoyance at him, right? I'm going to feel a little compassion because if he was tired, okay, he's tired. Then my action could be rather than snapping at him, I'm putting the shoes away, or I just gently remind him. And then the result kind of changes. The cognitive behavioral technique is about shifting your thought. There's 10 main cognitive distortions that we also get trapped on. One, for instance, for me, one of the cognitive distortions or thought errors that I tend to fall back on is over analyzing or shoulding myself, right? Like I should have done that. I should have done this. And for women in business, women second guess themselves a lot. Oh, what if this happened? And when we get stuck in these thoughts, then our actions don't support what we want, but they take us down that other path. Does that make
I
sense?
love,
In essence?
yeah, this was actually helpful for me to hear that because like I don't know what you call it. Like I think it'd be like I'm a very type A, like I'm very on top of like everything. So like it's very rare. And this is not, I'm not trying to like compliment myself here. I'm just saying like I'm like on it. Like so very rarely do things get by me or like I miss something. So when
Mhm.
and maybe this is a cognitive error, but when somebody else like makes a mistake that to me seems like it's like so common sense and easy, my initial thought is just like almost like I'm like blown away. Like I'm like, I don't understand like how you didn't do it.
I
So
get
maybe
it.
I could have add a little padding in there and just be like, okay, look, not everyone's like me that like triple, quadruple checks everything,
Mhm.
right? Because
Yeah,
and maybe they were tired. I don't know.
absolutely. That's what made a big difference for me in the corporate world, having that cognitive behavioral technique. I think that there were times, and again, I'm an open book, right? I created a lot of the anguish in one of my jobs because people weren't out there to, well, maybe they were, but who cares if they are, right? It's really how you choose to show up and shifting your mind, right? I am a perfectionist. I don't know if you're familiar with a DISC personality profile.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
am a
I am.
D. I am a D, a high D, and the second is like a high I, almost tied. But to me, like I want things done. I want them done right away. I don't, I don't care that you're gonna like you're moving too slow for me,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of times I used to like, what is wrong with these people? Like, why can't you get it done like when I want, right? But when I started to kind of see like I can't control what they're doing, I can only control how I think about the circumstance. Then it creates a little more space for you to not be, in this thinking errors that causes some of the anguish. The most common thinking errors or cognitive distortions are ignoring the good, which is when you only pay attention to the bad things, right? Blowing things up when you make a big deal out of something that is really made small, or for instance, you get a stain on your new shoes and you're like, oh, I can't believe this, right? Like this always happens to me. That's very big. It doesn't always happen to you. Or fortune telling, this happens a lot, right? When you're thinking that all the bad things are coming. If I ask her to do this for me, they're going to say no. That's fortune telling. And then that also creates a lot of anguish because you don't take action. Or mind reading, believing that you know what somebody else is thinking, or the negative labeling when again, oh, I'm a loser. I didn't do that right. Well, if you're a beginner, you're never going to get it right. We're always have to start as a beginner. So really understanding that you're not dumb or stupid, you can just say, oh, I'm learning too, right? And if you start to change that language, then it's going to give you more grace for yourself. Thinking the bar is too high, self-blaming, right? Blaming yourself if everything goes wrong, or also thinking that how you are feeling is a fact. And that I do that, right? So, for instance, now that I've been sick in the last month, I really have not been able to like move, do any yoga or any exercise. And I feel like, oh my God, I'm terrible. I'm always going to be out of shape. No, I'm sick. My body doesn't do that, right? And just because I feel that I'm out of shape doesn't mean that that can't change, right? Or if my friend calls and I don't call her back, and then I think I'm a terrible friend. No, I'm not a terrible friend. I just missed a phone call. So these are the things that cognitive behavioral techniques help you shift. And in working with individuals, these are some of the things that I help them as a coach overcome, because anybody can teach you how to launch a business, how to launch a course, how to grow, how to get leads, how to market. I can teach you that too. But when you're feeling inadequate, I can help you overcome those thoughts to help you take the action you need for your business.
Got it. Okay. That was amazingly well explained. I appreciate it.
It was long. I'm sorry, but I
No,
figured this
no,
would
no.
give you
I mean, in a good
context.
way. I mean, in a good way. That's why I do the podcast. I love to just listen to people, and it almost like when you're formulating your ideas and explaining it, it connects dots for me as well. So,
Awesome.
um, the next thing I want to ask you was about the business. And again, I could have heard it incorrectly. Before I do, though, I just want to highlight something. It seems to me from all the interviews I've done and people I've spoken to, a lot of times when starting your own business, it's first like solving your own problem, right?
Mhm.
Which is kind of like what you said, like you're your own best client. Then
Absolutely.
yeah, you were like mentoring people. I'm assuming, mentor
Mhm.
for free in some
Mhm.
cases. And then, you created a business out of it. And that is literally the exact progression that took with me and my business.
Mhm.
Many, many others, I'd say probably more than not entrepreneurs, it's them going through something that is an issue. They figure out how to solve it, and
Mhm.
they're like, oh crap, there's 1,000 other people that have this issue. I can solve it for them and charge for it.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Absolutely.
now you said the first 6 months was a little bit of a struggle, and then it took off. I'm assuming from there. So, like, what was the pivotal point, or like, how did you break through those struggles?
Yeah. So the pivotal point was one, getting out of my own way.
Mhm.
And consistency. I tell my clients all the time, consistent action gets you traction. And sometimes as entrepreneurs, and I see this a lot, um, we tend to suffer from attention deficit of oh shiny. And we think, oh, if I only had this thing working, then I could be successful. And, so for instance, I remember the first month, I was like, I can't launch a business without having the right logo.
Yeah.
Right. I need a right logo. Oh my gosh, I need the right colors and the scripty and I, I had the skills to be able to help someone, help them transform and help them change or get the things they want. But I was on my own way thinking that I needed that right logo. I see this also with entrepreneurs that, okay, you know what? If I just take that course on Instagram and how to do this, and I'm going to make money. And then they take the course or they don't finish the course. And then they move on to, oh no, I need to learn how to do LinkedIn. I need to do that. Oh no, I need to, and they go to these things and they don't really give enough time to assist them to work. The first organization that I grew, that I was working with, that hired me and grew me to the executive level, they have a franchise model. The company has been in business um, over 40 years now. And the way that it started as a mom and pop business. And one of the things that they did is they created systems, they stuck to the system, and they gave enough time for the systems to work. And then they started to replicate and grow from there. And that's the same thing in our business. We need to create systems, we need to get processes. So for instance, a lot of times my clients can come in and say, I don't even know what I should be working on every day. Okay, well, you need to create standard operating procedures. Like, when do you do X? When do you do Y? And also understanding that there's certain tasks, like you're in a development phase, you should not be worried about that. If because that's when all your systems are working. And but if you are it's still in development and still don't know what you offer, you need to create a brand. You need to start marketing that brand. You need to start talking to people about what you do. And then you can start to automate some of that stuff. So helping them go through that is important. That organization that I worked with had a rule, because as they grew and they became a franchise and they became a national franchise, um, they had a rule that if you came in either as an employee or as a franchise owner and you bought into the system, or you were hired to work at either a company or a franchise owned center, and you had a good idea of something that the company could change and do better, you could not share that idea for a year. You actually had to work and learn the system for a year. And then when you knew the inside and out of the system, then you could share, oh, maybe if we did it this way, it could be better. Then yes, you were improving the processes and procedures. But a lot of times when people come in, we're like, oh, you should do it this way. And then you never gave time for you to learn. And because we learn by failing, you have to fail. You have to not be good at it and grow. Then it gives you enough time to see that traction and really look at the data, right? Did it not work because maybe you thought, oh, I'm going to send emails, but you weren't consistent and you just decided email doesn't work? Or is it that you didn't send enough emails? Or is it that you weren't sending the right content on your emails? So these are the things that you really need to stick to and be consistent in order for your systems to work.
100%. And yeah, a lot of times I think that is what it is that people give up too early. And maybe it's partly a confidence issue. It could be because in a lot of cases, it's trial and error. It is a numbers game in a sense, but those percentages, I'll just use conversion, but it's not what I mean in every category. They get better and better as you fail more and more, and you realize how to position or word things, or the timing, whatever it is, gets better. And then that conversion goes higher. So
absolutely, conversion. And I love that you talk about conversion, because, and I think this is my word for the week, because in every single thing that I've been doing for yesterday and today, this word keeps coming up. Conversion is so key. People do not pay attention to the key numbers. When I work with clients, this is a little bit of what we work also, is what are the things that you should be doing every day, but what are your key numbers? Because, if you want to make, let's say $100 and you're charging $1, how many people do you need to talk to for someone to say, I'm going to give you $1? And how many of those dollars take to get 100, right? But people don't pay attention to these numbers. The same thing with clients or with anything that you're doing. If you are starting, you're going to launch a new program. A lot of coaches these days want to create a course, which is great. I love content. I'm a consumer of content, but they think that when they get the course, they're going to make the money. Well, what is leading people to know about you? How are you creating that like, know, and trust factor? Because people are only going to do business and purchase from someone that they like, they know, and they trust, and they have seen that they have some record of effectiveness. So they're afraid of putting themselves out there, but they're never going to get the conversion on those numbers if they're not putting themselves out there, because it is a numbers game. It is, you have to, and this is why I teach everyone, and it's a lesson that I had to also learn. And I want to just revisit. There was another turning point for me. I work with a coach. I have a coach because yes, I coach myself, but I need that accountability. And my turning point was when he said, well, I know you're looking for clients, but I want you to go and talk to people. I want you to offer your services, but I don't want you to look for people to tell you, yes, I want to work with you. I want you to go and get me 20 no's, where you to ask people to work with you and they told you no. Yeah. Going for the no was a big shift for me as well. And this is the same thing that now when I make an offer to someone, and we need to separate, right? It's not a reflection on, oh, Julie, you're terrible because that someone said no. I may not be the right fit, which is fine. And that's really what's important. People reach out to me, I talk to them, I share. I'm open to, give them feedback. I don't typically make an offer to work with someone. People usually say, oh, how do I work with you? That's the first question, because I gave them so much value and now they want more.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think what it is too is even when people do get a few wins, they
Mhm.
then don't. And going back to the numbers thing, and I'll say an example of like one of the ways we built our business is through partnerships, right? So we're like pretty heavily focused on book marketing. So like 7 years
Mhm.
ago, it clicked for me. I was like, okay, well, I could like try to find authors directly, or I could build relationship with thousands of publishers and then they could refer me all their authors. And the
Absolutely.
second path is easier. And like so many people that I talk to, they're like, yeah, I got like 2, 3 referral partners. It's chill. Like every once in a while I get a client. And I'm like, okay, well, wait, you should step back and analyze like your 2 or 3 referral partners. Who are they? And like what do they do, like analyze them, how could you find 100 more of them,
Mhm.
and like that's what I did. And like, and there's so many, that's what I love about marketing, so many different ways, it's really a limitless topic. But just partnerships alone, I mean it's limitless.
Yeah.
It's really, and it's, I think, so much easier for so many reasons. Like a referral obviously is borrowed trust.
Mhm.
um Very unlikely when you get clients that way, it's almost like the sale's already done before they're,
Absolutely.
so I
Yeah.
don't know, I just think if something's working too, see how you can amplify it by 100 times. Don't just be like, oh, that's working, let me try to start something new.
Yeah. But
Amplify.
here's the key. People don't realize that things are working. And this is going back to this cognitive distortions. If
Yeah.
you are not tracking your numbers, then you're not going to grow. My clients kind of roll their eyes. I had a client earlier. It's Tuesday. I post the question in our private chat on a Monday typically. And I say, what are your goals for the week? And on Friday, how much did you get to those numbers? And I tell them at every time that you and I speak, I may ask you, what are your key numbers for the week? And you need to be able to answer them. She couldn't. She's been distracted. And guess what? When she looked at it, she was doing a lot better than she thought she was, but she wasn't tracking them. And that's
No, that
what we need
is,
to do.
yeah, it's so, it's the small things that are actually big. Is
Oh,
kind of
so
how
good. That's such a good quote.
yeah. Um, that's awesome. So look, what I'd like to do is kind of leave the floor to you. If there's anything we didn't share, like please do. And then also, I want, tell people where to get the book, website, socials, how can they stay
Sure.
in contact with you?
Yeah. So, I think I love this conversation. I think that one of the things that you said that I'd like to really touch on is there is, people are underestimated. The value of partnerships is so key. My dad said to me, your worth is based on the relationships and the connections and the people that you can really turn to and say, hey, who do you know that? Right. And and that's really how my mind works too. Like I may be talking to you and you're, hey, I'm going to launch blah, blah, blah. And oh, you should check out blah, blah. And I love making those connections because I think that although I have many competencies and I continue to try to grow my skills, I'm not an expert in any one thing. But if you're looking for that one expert, I want to connect you because if you are successful, and I, continue to support you, I know that you're going to support me. So I think that this is very important. And I love that model. I think that a lot of people also go into relationships and business thinking, oh, but if I work with that, they're a coach and maybe that's less for me, or people are not, why would they work with me if you're going to work with her? But the reality is that if you're clear on what your brand is, you can partner with another coach that does something that's similar to you. and you can continue to both build and be successful. So there's more collaboration, the better, because you're going to stand out. Your brand, your message is going to stand out. And that's a little bit of what, again, lessons that I have learned throughout my career, but also I learned through the individual women who are part of my book. So I share the stories of 10 women who I've known at different stages of my life, starting with my grandmother, who was my first influence, and ending with my mom, because, without my mom, again, although I don't talk about my mom a lot, she is the person that has been there supporting me growing. She was a single mom, and although my dad was a big impact in my life, both of them have made me who I am. There's other amazing individuals who may not get the stage, but have really, grown through building their confidence by stepping out and doing the things that people say, well, why would you do that? So for instance, I tell the story of a good friend of mine. She went to school to be a nurse, and she realized soon that she wanted to be a doctor. Yet she had been working and she had grown to be an executive, not an executive. She was in a leadership position as a supervisory nurse. She was earning good money. She had a 9 to 5, which was great. And then she's like, I want to be a doctor. And people said to her, oh my God, you're getting old. Wow, why would you give up this to go into debt for $200,000 and all of that? And how she had a goal in mind and she broke it into smaller chunks and she went after that. And now she's a doctor, right? And I think that a lot of times in life, we allow, those voices either from others or even from ourselves, because she had those doubts. And she had thought all of that people were saying, but she stayed the course. And I think that that's a lot of what we need to learn to do for ourselves, is stay the course despite the opinions of others, because the opinion that really matters most is the opinion we have of ourselves at the end of the day. And again, if anybody is interested in the book, they can get it through Amazon or they can go to my website. If you get it through the website, you also, I have a book bonus, which is it's a personal branding session. I think that a lot of people, whether they're in a career or a business, it's important to really be clear on what your personal brand is. And this is one of my favorite things that I like to do for others, is help them figure out what are their values, strengths, weaknesses, that SWOT analysis, and really creating a personal development plan for themselves. So that's the first thing that I work with individuals. So if you get the book through my website, you can also get the bonus for free. The other bonus too, the book also includes, the teacher in me had to do this, right? It includes some takeaways, because a lot of times, and I read, I must have 2 or 3 books that I'm in the middle of, right? But what is it that you read that actually has impact in your life? The things that you put into practice. So I give you some tangible things and help you figure out how do you implement what you read about just here into your business, into your life. Yeah, and that's where you can get it. The website is goconfidentlycoaching.com, and I'm Julie DeLucca Collins and all of the platforms. Also in Clubhouse. I love Clubhouse as my favorite a platform, just because I'm a social person. So being able to speak to others and learn from others, it's really key. And last but not least, my podcast, which I love, which is Casa, DeConfidence, where I feature stories of individuals who have gone confidently in the direction of their dreams and have struggled with confidence, but have overcome some of the challenges that life has thrown them to become the person that they are. And they're making an impact in the life of others and for themselves as well.
Perfect. That's awesome. And the website one more time was
goconfidentlycoaching.com.
perfect. And thanks again for coming on. Really enjoyed talking with
Thank you so much. What a fun conversation, and stay nice and warm in sunny Miami.
you. Oh, I will. I definitely will do that.